being here today. This presentation is going to be on why solitary confinement needs to be banned. I want to start by reading to you all a quote that I found. I watched a woman claw chunks of flesh from her cheek and nose. My neighbor bashed her head against the wall until officers came in to remove her out of her cell. Across from my cell, a woman slit her throat with a razor. 2 others tried to asphyxiate themselves with bras and shoestrings. These are just a fraction of the horrors that Sarah Jo Pender experienced during her 5-year sentence in solitary confinement at the Indiana's Women's Prison. These inmates that are often facing many years behind bars are often forgotten once the key has been turned and thrown out. However, it is important to remember that they are human beings as well. For those that commit even the smallest infractions, they face extreme punishment, most of it being solitary confinement. Addressing the abuse with solitary confinement is a concerning matter because it has severe damaging effects to the well-beings of the inmates. As a person with a master's degree in criminology and having personal experience working in corrections for 3 years, I am credible to speak to you about the importance of addressing this issue behind the inhumane use of solitary confinement. Today, I plan to share with you 3 important things. The first one being the problem behind the use of solitary confinement, the solution to this problem, and help you visualize a future where we can use more rehabilitative strategies to improve inmate behavior. Now, I want to start off by passing you guys a handout. I wanted to give each of you a brochure so you can remember this presentation. Now, you see that image of a cell? That is a typical cell that you see in solitary confinement within Georgia Diagnostic Classification System prison. Minimal space, about 6 feet by 8 feet with only a toilet, a sink, thin mattress, and your thoughts. These inmates spend 22 to 23 hours in these cells. Because of the social isolation, it has a major impact on the inmate's mental well-being. One research study conducted at the Pelican Bay State Prison in California took a random sample of 100 inmates to determine the psychological effects of isolation, and there were various similarities discovered between them all. More than half of the prisoners reported experiencing distress-related symptoms like heart palpitations, sweating, and trembling. Furthermore, it was discovered that they also experienced intrusive thoughts, social withdrawal, hallucinations, and suicide. Just imagine yourself locked in a room with no one to talk to. You're prone to go insane. It's completely inhumane. I also interviewed an old professor of mine who described to me the conditions of inmates in solitary confinement. Dr. Morris said to me, "It's inhumane and heartbreaking. There are some inmates serving life sentences for committing heinous crimes, but remaining in a cell 23 hours of the day with only a small window as a form of light, it's a crime in itself." She explained how prisons were not strict with the use of solitary confinement, and there would be inmates isolated for months. Not only does solitary confinement affect their mental health, but also affects recidivism rates. While in solitary confinement, social withdrawal is a normal response to being completely cut off from social contact, they have no choice but to become asocial because it becomes a reality. This is especially concerning for those that are close to being released from prison because it's a completely different environment that they are not accustomed to anymore. In my interview with Dr. Morris, she explained to me how it is a much harder transition for those in solitary confinement, and you can see many of them returning back and violating their parole. She also explained that the isolated inmates were restricted to resources like education, work programs, training programs, and rehabilitation programs. Now that I have shared with you the issue of solitary confinement, let's talk about a solution. One alternative would be crisis intervention training among correctional officers. This was first developed in 1988 in the Memphis Police Department to train officers in understanding mental health. Providing correctional officers with proper skills to recognize and de-escalate inmate behavior in a mental health crisis. For example, one study that investigated the benefits of CIT training among COs discovered that with mental health training, They were more knowledgeable in identifying an inmate that was having a mental health crisis and providing them with the proper mental health care that they need. Another alternative would be community-based reentry programs. According to an article by Thriving Communities, there are thousands of individuals that are released from prison every year, and more than half are rearrested within the first 5 years. This is where community-based programs play an important role in providing these individuals with proper care and skills to become productive members of society. One specific example of a rehabilitative program is the Fortune Society, which has impacted the lives of more than 10,000 individuals in New York by providing them with housing, employment, education, and one-on-one therapy. This program has become a leading reentry program in the United States. Now, you might be wondering, how can I help? Those mental health training programs for correctional officers and community-based programs are not possible without the proper financial support that we as a community can provide for them. Not only that, providing awareness to the issue may also be useful to bring changes in the prison system and ban solitary confinement once and for all. Now, you've heard about the issues on the use of solitary confinement and the negative impact that it has on inmates, as well as a solution to address this issue. Now let's visualize a future where solitary confinement no longer exists. The main benefit of solving this problem is that it would improve overall health of inmates with behavioral and mental health issues, which ultimately improves their likelihood of successfully transitioning back into society. Now, what are the consequences if the problem is not solved? The main one being the continuation of the abuse of solitary confinement, deteriorating health of inmates, and a cycle of reoffending or this revolving door where they're released and they're back into the system. The opposing side may argue to us that they're criminals and need to be punished, but do not think about the financial burden this issue causes, because as they continue back into prison, it's our tax dollar that at the end ends up being affected by all of this. So my main purpose today was to motivate you all to work together in helping ban the use of solitary confinement. Today I shared with you all 3 points: problem of the use of solitary confinement, a solution for the problem, and visualizing a future where we use rehabilitative strategies to improve inmate behavior. As I close this speech, I don't want you to forget those that continue to be locked away. Remember, it's not just about locking them away, it's about reforming them. It's about improving their behavior. Please take the handout with you today that I passed out earlier, and remember those that are isolated.